This is the left side. This is the right side.
Welcome back to a very special episode of Pretty Good Vibrations, the podcast that both celebrates and analyzes pop and rock music and the crucial role it plays throughout our lives. I say this is a very special episode because this is a very Sherwood episode. This is from the heart about the haze, the nostalgia haze past of our lives. I am joined again by Joe Greenetz, who you all know and love, but in a very special twist, also by Mike Leibovich, keyboardist extraordinaire. Mikey, thanks for being here.
I am so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
They're getting 2 for the price of 1 this week. This is nice.
And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our favorite Sherwood songs in chronological order. I'll explain later how I ranked everything. But we're going to be talking basically through our discography by way of hearing clips from a handful of songs from each of those albums, and they are going to be our favorite songs. We will also use those clips as an opportunity to talk about each of those songs, as well as at some point, maybe at the end, we'll talk about, maybe at the beginning of each album, we'll talk about the album as a whole, any memories of making that thing, stuff like that. And it'll probably take us 2 sessions to get through all of this. We're not in any rush. If you're not a Sherwood fan, I recognize most of you are not here listening to this podcast because of Sherwood. It's not a Sherwood podcast. Some of you, though, I happen to know our band or even like it a good bit. And if you don't, I will not be offended if you just skip. Go ahead, get out of here. It's no big deal. We're going to nerd out with our friends and for our friends, and it's going to be good, I think.
Yeah, I think I might skip this one.
Wait, where is that skip button?
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So I'll tell you guys what we did here. I asked each of you for a top 10, and I put all the songs, all 3 of our lists into a spreadsheet, and I gave number 1 on the list gets 10 points, number 10 gets 1 point, and then everything in between. This is, by the way, how I came up with the Weezer album seeding for the albums tournament, something akin to this, except that was with people's best of Weezer blog posts, like every Weezer album ranked posts. Okay, anyway, so I put those in there and then added it all up, and we've got 20 songs. And so rather than going from 20 to 1 and ending with, the most beloved song amongst the 3 of us, I figure it'd be cooler to go chronologically, and we will listen to the songs that made the top 20 from each album as we go. And then people might, there might be some cool kind of progression that we notice for the first time kind of listening and talking in order. Listeners will certainly find things that they notice about maybe how the sound changes. Maybe we'll hear some of the bands we tour with, like coming through in the next album or, things like that. I think it'd be cool to go chronological. Probably some interesting shit will come up. And I think that's it. There are songs from every single release that we did. And 1 interstitial B-side. So do you guys have any questions about any of that stuff?
I don't think so.
No, but here, I'll just quickly tell you this. So I'm not in the habit of listening through our discography on the regular, I will admit. So as I was prepping for this and I was just kind of refamiliarizing myself with all of our albums, I went to Sherwood's Spotify page.
Yeah.
And the second most popular, can you pull this up and explain this to me? The second most popular song on Sherwood's page is a Sherwood dub, which has nothing to do with Sherwood, but I enjoyed this song thoroughly.
No. It's weird. There is some artist named Noise Shaper that, are they sampling us?
I don't think so. No,
I
it has
did not
nothing
hear
to
a
do with
sample.
us.
It must
no.
be
I
there-
listened,
like
although
there
I was
are
waiting.
Okay, yeah, there
I
are a
was waiting,
handful of like rap artists and other things like that. Maybe electronic, just like very clearly from the artwork, like a different part of the music
Genre.
industry,
Yeah.
different genre, who have gone by Sherwood over the years. So it's probably one of those. But I think
Yeah.
it's interesting that the actual number 2 is the acoustic version of the only song from the Punk Goes Acoustic compilation. Anyway, okay, we are going to be I'm going to be up my own ass for this whole thing. So if you don't want to hear me talk about myself, please do us both a favor and don't listen to this episode. I also want you guys to be thinking, what's my favorite album and what's my favorite sounding album, like the production of it, just like instrumentally, vocally, whatever. And then let's just make sure to say that if it's, as we're talking about kind of introducing each record, because it'd be cool to hear what we like about them. Okay. And I also want to know about some early memories, but I think rather than asking that, I'm just anxious to hear some music and stop hearing myself talk. So we're going to start in 2004. Joe, can you please set up for us what do we need to know about the making of the Sherwood EP?
So let's see. We all met while we were living in the town of San Luis Obispo, California, on the Central Coast. And I just kind of met through various networks. And the band had started with just Dan and Nate and Chris as a 3-piece, kind of more emo, I would say.
Yeah.
A little less pop inclination. And then at the time, I knew them, but I was in another band called The Push Game. And that was sort of coming to the end, a planned end of its career, because like one guy got married and we were graduating, and it was never intended to be a serious thing.
Right.
And when that was kind of starting to happen, I came to you guys and said, "Hey, I really like your band and I'd love to be involved in some way." Dan, you were playing drums, and I said, "If you want me to like be a percussion player, I think I could add a lot."
Yeah, to which I laughed and said, "Dude, you're obviously going to be the drummer. You're way better than me." And that's when I switched to second guitar. And then we added Chris Keene on keyboards, right? And so Mike, you actually, this is something I forgot to say earlier. You're not on the first record or the last record. So you just get all the best stuff in the middle. In most people's opinion.
I joined right out, actually, maybe even before you released the album, because Chris quit the band.
Yeah. He left.
I think right after recording.
Yep,
that's right.
And
and
I was
joined
roommates
right around
with,
the time.
I was
all lived
roommates
together.
with. Yeah, we all lived together. And so best thing that ever happened to me, I think, was being roommates with you guys.
Oh.
So I would hear you practice. I mean, this was the other thing is, I don't know how interesting this is for people, but you had built a practice room in the garage of the house that we lived in.
This is, by the way, its own story that we
cinder
might
blocks
tell.
and sand and
mattresses
and
all, and
sand that may or may not have illegally been shoveled into Nate's truck. From the beach, the beach, and driven back slowly dripping 25 minutes
at 1 a.m.
At 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
And so everybody in the band lived in a house together except for me. I lived like a mile away.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you heard us. Yeah, you heard us playing, and Chris was over. Yeah.
Chris was over it. This is my transition, I think, a little bit into how I joined, right? Was like you had auditioned. You were like, okay, Chris is out. We're going to audition some people. And, without naming names, you auditioned far more talented piano players than me. And I think you got to a point where you're like, okay, we don't need that great of a piano player. We kind of need somebody who can play well, understand the role that keys have in Sherwood. And Nate was like, Mikey, you're the guy, dude. You're the guy. And he was like, this is a very distinct memory. he was on the keto diet at the time, and he was like, you had just finished recording the EP, and he's like, dude, you got to learn these songs. I'm going to stay up with you all night. We're going to work on them together. You're going to nail these songs, and then we're going to go rehearse the next day. And he was stress eating Jello pudding or chocolate pudding that he had made. He had made with heavy whipping cream.
Heavy whipping cream, yeah.
And he had this giant bowl. He's like in my room. I'm like, running over the lines.
I
and he's
gave
just
him
like,
that recipe because I had used it in high school when I did Atkins.
And I just remember it was like, he was just like, yeah, dude, one more time. Let's run it one more time. And he's like shoveling keto pudding all night long. We probably stayed up till 5 a.m.
Oh my
It was
God.
such a, such a fun memory. And like, Nate
dude,
was,
that's awesome.
I think Nate was a big early believer in, of me. So I just love
that's
him for
how
that,
the
too,
band got started, is he was that much of a believer in me.
Yeah.
Because of the clear promise I had showed as the songwriter for the Ramones sounding comedy band, the Ranomes, had proven to him. No, we had actually, we had written a couple songs. We had sort of a false start of a project that was just preceded Sherwood. And I think we wrote a couple songs for it. And I don't know, we just didn't do anything with that. So, and I think he was like, yeah, but we really should, dude. We should do something with that. He's like, I can be a great singer and you can be a great songwriter. And, there was essentially no evidence for either of those claims at that time. Like, if you just grabbed a statistically average group of two guys who had written those songs and sang them that way, but
Yeah.
Nate is a believer, and whether that's how much of that is self-fulfilling prophecy or whatever, we both became good enough singer and songwriter that we were able to do it for a living for almost 10 years. So it's pretty incredible.
I want to say something super quick, just going back. When Chris Keene, who is the keyboard player on the first EP, when he left, it wasn't because he was over it. He really wanted to get going on a music career, and he had an offer from another band in his hometown that were his friends.
That's right.
And they were going on tour, and he really wanted to get that going. And so we parted amicably.
Totally
and,
amicably,
we are still good friends to this day.
He's a wonderful human, and his loss was my gain.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up, Joe. I don't want people to get that impression.
Yeah.
No, it was all on good terms. And he was really only with us for about, I think maybe six months or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't very long. So it was totally cool. But we were so, Mikey, that's when it forms. That's when the band as I know it becomes the band that became that band, right? And then of course later Chris left and David joined. But the kind of the bones, the foundation had been laid, the exoskeleton had been created, and then we could fill it out however we wanted. So I think let's roll into this thing and let's start hearing some music. So as we get to each song, I will say where it was on each person's list. And then, so we got 2 songs from the Sherwood EP, 2004, self-funded, self-recorded, self-released, produced and mixed by Michael Rosas. First is The Push Game, and this was number 10 for Joe. I actually went to 12. It says number 12 for me. I know.
Come on.
I know. Okay, it's my show. And here it is. The thing about this song that I really like is there's the final chorus and then like a pretty straightforward kind of outro, but that I think captures the type of like emo pop that we figured out we were playing. It feels to me like it's a step in between the EP and the first full length. So I'm going to play kind of a later part of the song for that reason.
Oh
keenly aware of how weird it feels to be giving this treatment to my own songs that I give so regularly to like masterworks. I know that I like hear it not living up to that, like as the creator of this podcast. It's a very bizarre way to recognize one's relative mediocrity.
We were.
It was your number. It was your number 13. So
it was number 12 for me. It was number 12.
I can hear we were a very nascent band at the time, still figuring out what we wanted to do. We were tight. I remember for practices for a couple of years, we would like be practicing 3, 4, 5 nights a week for several hours.
Yeah.
And like we would go through with a fine toothed comb and everybody would know everybody's every note.
Yeah. And where to break and have little pauses. And I would say
this exactly.
obviously, yeah, I would say we got to be a very tight live band. I think that we were sort of known for that a little bit. But we started out like pretty focused on playing with precision.
And all the parts fit together like a Jenga puzzle.
Yeah.
And
you didn't play to a metronome at this point though.
I think you did.
Not live yet.
No, but I think you practiced with one sometimes.
Probably.
Or we at least like once we got close, we found about the BPM and stuff like that.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe, why did you put it on your list?
So as I said before, when the band was starting, I was in another band called The Push Game, and the main riff from this song was maybe not stolen, but I see you're looking that up on Spotify. We are definitely not on Spotify.
Yeah, but you know what? I got it on my Apple Music, so
okay.
Just give me a second.
This riff was for a Push Game song, but it never got fully fleshed out. And with the permission of our good friend and the writer of the song, Josh Sheeter, we appropriated the riff and turned it into our own song. So in honor of that, we named it after my old band. And I think, it's a good summation of how we approach songwriting and fitting everything together and just having that formula of, okay, when the chorus hits, it's going to be big guitars, both sides. There's an organ playing the same chords. There's a harmony. I'm writing the crash cymbals, like that formula took us through several albums.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, I am able to find the Push Game on here, Joe. So I'm going to play a little something. Should we do Novelty, you think?
Yeah, that's probably the most palatable.
What a novel way to start. 10 years is a long, long time to wait. 10 years. And who could debate the 10 years is a long, long time to wait. Am I worth the wait? Am I worth the wait? The survey says no. Not worth the wait. Not worth the wait.
Okay, let's hear the next track, which is The Summer Sends Its Love. And this was our first, I guess it was actually maybe our second single, insofar as there was a single when you self-release your own EP. But if you can call that meaningfully a single, then this was our first single.
Think of me tonight when everyone leaves and you're alone. Think of me tonight. I'm counting the days till you come The summer sends its love to you, the same as every year. But this year I will send mine too, and wish that you were here. The summer sends its love.
Sorry, Joe, to cut it off right before
that's
your
fine.
big drum fill. That was not on purpose.
They
That was
were
not
about
my
to hear
intention.
it. They were about to hear it.
It
Dan.
was just going. It was going
Yeah, that's
long
fine.
there. I hear the limitations. I also hear there's something really charming about the chorus.
I agree. That was a fan favorite. I think because we name checked the Central Coast where we were from, and a lot of the hometown fans loved that. It's a little bit disjointed of a song. We did try to, in later albums, we tried to re-record it. I remember retracking drums for this several times, but it just never panned out. It just
No,
never
it
turned
didn't. It didn't quite work as well in other ones. Mikey, why'd you put it on the list?
Couple different reasons. For me, it was such a fresh sound at the time it came out. I think that there's also pieces of it that were like early signs of like I think pop that was to come, I think it was, it really kind of fit into that emo adjacent, I think, genre of the time, but there was like something about it that had a lot of like pop sensibility. So I think you hear potentially where we would go and how we would evolve. Other things I love about the song, I agree with you. I think structurally, it's not a perfectly clean song, but I think there's details that I really appreciate. So one was like, I think we were one of the few bands maybe to really use a lot of like percussion, to enhance like verses and bridges and otherwise, right? Like tambourine and sleigh bells and things like that. And in a way that kind of became, I think, a little of like a calling for us as like a distinction, maybe.
I think sleigh bells especially was rare. Tambourine,
yeah,
that's kind of always around.
Totally.
Or we would do like little, and like Joe had some. Was that like from high school band or what that you learned? Like that hand
I had
percussion?
grown up doing classical, school band and stuff, and I was in the orchestra at college, so I had
cool.
I had a foot in that world.
Yeah, and definitely the sleigh bells, which was a Beach Boys thing, of course.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, I think just the guitar stuff is like the guitar work is so cool, and we talked about Chris Keane, but I think like Chris's,
Chris Armstrong, guitarist. Yeah.
Chris Armstrong's, his writing is just, I think, so interesting and unique. And
I agree. Yeah. Underrated member of our band.
The other thing, throughout this record, a lot of the keyboard sounds were from an old vintage Casio that I don't know where you got it. Like, I don't know if you got it at a pawn shop or something, but it was like drum beats. All the organ tones were from that,
Yeah, it sounds weird. It's kind of
sounds super weird, and
we didn't stick with it.
Yeah, and then I think Joe, you already mentioned this, but it's like I'm actually the only Sherwood member that now lives in San Luis Obispo where we all started. So there's a little bit of a callback there for me too, right? I think that song became somewhat emblematic of like where we started and
absolutely.
So those are.
I wrote that song. I wrote that song for Curtis Nemetz and Valley's wedding.
Wow.
I wrote it to sing at their wedding as like, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. Like, here's a wedding gift. I wrote you a song. I'm 19 years old. Like, I'm not famous.
It's a nice gift though.
It's a great gift.
But I think I added some stuff later, but the chorus was written for that. And it was so it's kind of one of the first songs we had. Okay, well,
what? Real quick, one more quick anecdote about this first EP.
Yeah.
On our first nationwide tour in the summer of 04, we were playing to nobody, so we ended up having to go to malls to sell CDs to make gas money. So we would camp outside Hot Topic or something similar, look for people who appeared like they might be receptive to our music and go up to them and play them our stuff over the headphones and try to sell CDs.
It's called profiling, Joe.
It's called profiling. But I remember, depending on what kind of crowd it was we're trying to sell to, I'd pick a different song from the EP.
Absolutely.
So if it was like a more punk rock looking guy, it might be like, Please Wait Up For Me.
Please Wait Up For Me,
But if it was like girls wearing bright colors, it would be The Summer Senses Love.
Yeah, and I did that too.
And every time, after a few seconds, and you can tell they're getting into it, they take off the headphones and go, Are you the singer?
Are you the singer?
Like, no,
More
that's
often
that guy
they would
over there.
leave their headphones on. They go, "Are you the singer?" They don't realize that they're
That got us kicked
Speaking
out of
very
malls
loudly.
across America.
for many years, at least a decade after we were done with all that, maybe 15 years, I still felt a little anxiety when I saw mall security guards in malls. Like it triggered that for me. Man, and the thing too, I've said this, I don't know elsewhere, but we made $7 a day for that first two, maybe the first like 2 tours. And then if you guys remember, there was a rule that if you sold a CD more than, I don't know if it was 100 yards, something like that, a block away from the venue, basically past any lines of people milling about who are already coming to the show, if you sell it to anybody else, you could keep that money for food. So
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, dude. That was
Wow.
like how I would get a full burrito at Chipotle and not have to do the trick where you get the one taco, get the one veggie taco, and they almost always give you a full side of guac instead of only a one taco side of guac. And then you get chips and they ring you up as chips and guac, but you explain, no, that's the guac from my veggie taco. And it's like $5 and it's like the best $5.
I think they've caught on by now, though.
Yeah.
No, I did it.
You can't
I
pull
did
that
it
at
once.
Chipotle anymore.
I did it a few years ago when I wasn't that hungry. I did it once, not to save money. I was like, that's a good amount of food. And I did it, and it worked again. It worked again when I was 35 years old. So I think it still works. Anyways, we sold 5,000.
Was that song on either of your
We sold 5,000 copies of that EP mostly through hand-to-hand sales. That was mostly at Warped Tour.
Yeah.
But we sold hundreds in malls and everywhere. And Joe, we talked about this before. To our final shows in 2017, we never did a tour without someone coming up to us at one stop along that tour or more and saying, I met you guys, you sold me a CD at the Mall of America or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as long as we were somewhere in an area that we toured, we would always meet someone like that.
Yeah.
And so we actually made like real fans doing it.
Yeah. pretty great.
But it is insane behavior that I cannot imagine engaging in today.
So we toured.
So was
our
that song in either of your top 10s or no?
No,
Since It's
we
Love?
both went Push Game from the EP. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, for different reasons.
So we toured and worked really hard for like a year, and word got around about us in the industry, and a small label from LA approached us, and having never even seen us live, wanted to sign us just because they knew we would hustle, and even if we didn't have good music, they knew that we would sell. We were good for 5,000 or 10,000 copies of an EP, and they were like,
Yep.
"Hey, let's do this."
Yeah, exactly. So we signed a 1+1 deal. I don't know if you remember this, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
It was potentially a 2-album deal, but in order for him to get the second album, he had to sell
10,000. 15.
15,000 in a year, and it sold like 13 and a half, and so we were free to go, and eventually got to 15. And so this was just the one album we did with Sideshow. It's called Sing But Keep Going. That is a quote from a Kathleen Norris book, I think The Cloister Walk. And let's see, we recorded it in Irvine, California with Michael Rosas. He produced and mixed it. We did some overdubs at his house in Newport Beach. And it came out in 2005. So we've got
it was
4
St.
songs.
Augustine.
St. Augustine quote that was quoted in the Cloister Walk. That's what it was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where we found it. That was Chris Armstrong and I's job to figure out what the hell to name this thing. And we were like, it has to be literary. You know, like later on when we did the photos for A Different Light and I had a Kierkegaard book that I was reading in the picture like a fucking idiot. All right. So we got 4 songs. Such a pretentious little shit at 23. All right. Sing We Keep Going. We got 4 tracks in reverse popular order. Okay. So first we Do This to Ourselves. This is number 16 on the top 20. And it looks like, Mikey, you had it highest. you had this at number 9. And I also had it, but at number 11. So let's hear a clip and then talk about it. I think if we do this to ourselves, you got to play from the beginning, right? This starts the record, and I'm still proud. I think we should be proud instrumentally of this, especially. I think this is my favorite song on the record, and mainly that's because instrumentally, I think it's really tight. So here's a bit of "We Do This to Ourselves."
Spent a lifetime running away, cold feet on cobblestone at the break of day. I still remember everything, the way we laughed in front of the store closing. We're finding a way to move along without you.
Yeah, that's a nice, tight first chorus.
It's a great song.
This feels so weird doing this for me, because I do this all the time with other bands. It's so weird doing it with my own songs. I'm very uncomfortable, but I want to hear what you guys have to say about these songs. So I'm gonna push through that discomfort, and I'm gonna really.
We're here to shepherd you through this discomfort, Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Will you be my doulas for this experience here?
Your emotional support
Yes.
buddies.
My life coaches.
What I like
Not
about
quite dilated enough yet.
We don't know each other well
gotta
enough
be
for that.
emotionally dilated, Dan.
Guys, I'm only at 4 centimeters right now.
What I like about this song is it's a great example of something I think we did that was pretty unique, which is we would have these little musical motifs that we would be able to sprinkle throughout the song in different contexts. So at the end of that chorus, the
Yeah.
appears at the end of the song as well as a big full band riff. And like at the end of the bridge, it does the big ba 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 na 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 na. With the vocals. Right. And so we were pretty good, I think, at finding these ways to weave those back in throughout the song.
Yeah, I forgot about that second pairing. Oh my gosh, that must have been your idea. That feels like a Joe idea. I like that. Okay, Mikey, did you talk about this one?
No, I'll just quickly say, who doesn't love an organ slide into a song? So, so
Seriously,
fun. Super fun to play live.
We are Sherwood. Hear our keyboard.
I think also the arrangement of the song is really interesting. It's like the second verse is super interesting, and I think it's just a really great, catchy chorus. Like, I think I really like the chorus.
You know what? Something is emerging for me here. I am going to permit myself to navel gaze for a second. But actually, I'll save it for after this next track.
We were really awesome.
No. It's not about being awesome. It's even a little self-deprecating, but it's just it's just borderline narcissistic. So here's I'll Wait for You. Let's hear a little bit of this first. Joe, this is on your list, right? So where do you want to hear? Number 5 for Joe.
End of the first chorus.
Okay.
Every day, see it for yourself or make no plans. And you are somewhere else and I'll sing for you. Songs that no one hears, but tell me you listen. And say I have your ears and I'll never say I don't have time when you need me with
remember the day you wrote this song. We were on tour in Missouri. We were at a venue. At the time, your job when loading in was to set up the merchandise table.
That sounds about right.
And the rest of us.
I got the non-heavy.
Yeah,
lifting
somebody
job.
else's job was to take a phone call the second we were pulling into the venue.
No names here. Take a phone call.
Oh shoot! Someone's calling.
Guys, it's Christian. I gotta take this.
Okay. Anyway, we had all set up our gear and everything, but lo and behold, the merch stuff was still sitting in its bins untouched, and you were nowhere to be found.
Oh.
So the show was like getting close to opening, and I was like, dang it. So I was pissed at you. I set up all the merchandise myself, and I was like, of course maybe he's like taking a nap or something. Come to find out, you had just had this idea pop into your head, and you had to finish it and see it through, and this song arrived fully formed in a matter of 30 to 60 minutes that you spent writing it, and I was like, oh, that's a really good song. So I was no longer mad at you.
Sweet.
I was no longer mad at you, and it's still one of my favorites.
You never tell me I look pretty anymore. It is really weird.
Are you now emotionally dilated to 5
guys,
centimeters?
I'm at 5 or 6 centimeters here, I think. Yeah. You're really opening me up here.
I think this was one of my favorite songs that we recorded. You didn't play it, but the outro, we had our friend Chris from Melee. Yeah. I don't remember if we had anybody else. Maybe it was just him at the time. But
Libby, his girlfriend, now wife, was also in that chorus, I believe.
His sister, I think, too.
Maybe his sister was there,
yeah. Because that record, I mean, most of it was, recorded in isolation, instrument by instrument. I think that song, there were a few parts where it was like, let's just do this
gang
live.
vocals.
I think, yeah. Not the song live, but just that outro, I think.
Yeah. Right before this album right before we recorded this album, Brian Wilson had released "Smile."
Oh gosh.
Which really amped up the Beach Boys energy. It was very word?
It was playing in the van constantly.
Yeah, it was very inspiring for you in terms of the arrangements and production flourishes that we ended up adding. And so the outro of this song is a great example of that. That's a super Beach Boys move to just break down to a little sing-song thing.
Yeah. Okay. I'll say the thing I was going to say earlier, which is that I think I'm realizing something about myself. So when I stopped playing in Sherwood and then I went back to school and then I became a commercial composer, the way that I've thought about what I do, what I've done as a commercial composer is I'm not an artist, I'm an artisan. So it's akin to like you might have like a fine art sculptor, or you've got someone who like designs staircases, right? And the quality of those staircases could be like in a upscale home to like, well, that's a pretty cool way to do a convention center, or whatever. But like somebody has to figure out how that works, and then they have to be able to make it. And that's not the same as the sculpture you walk in on your way into the building, right? So as I listen back to this stuff, I like see especially where the songwriting is passable. It's good enough. There's maybe a handful of moments I really like, but the craft that we took instrumentally and how thought out everything is, and that was of course collaborative, but I think that I'm like, oh, that's the part that I and we were best at. And that's why we were good live, because we had a whole that was working with a bunch of different parts, and it was really in sync. And we had built this kind of machine together. And that's basically what I did as a commercial composer, right? So that's the thing that's navel-gazy, but that's becoming kind of clear, I think.
Yeah. I think this song is also a great example of a really great and creative lead guitar
By
that
Chris
is doing in the chorus, in that right channel.
Yeah. Oh, that was it. Well, I'll save it. I got one more thing to say about the record as a whole. Next up, and some people might be thinking just do 2 songs per album. I'm sorry. I'll try and put in where we go to each album, and then if you want, you can okay, that's enough. I heard from that record, and then you can just click that number and go straight to the next album. I'll try and do that later when it's all done. This was the biggest song from Sing But Keep Going. This is The Town That You Live In. It's number 8 overall on the combined score list. Who's got it highest? It looks like, Mike, you've got it highest. It is your number 3. Anything to say to set it up?
Just play it. It's so good.
Okay.
Must say, it's a nice day with the flowers in bloom. There is so much to view from the freeway, and we're friends for the weekend. When the fall comes around, you can show me the town that you live in. And tonight I walk through an empty street with my shadow stretching in front of me, where my lonely thoughts meet my lonely feet, and the cold reminds me that I've chosen this life. So hang up the phone, 'cause you're probably better alone. So hang up the phone, 'cause you're probably better.
James Cho, our label owner, said that bridge was his favorite part of the record.
I think one of my favorite parts is going from the bridge into that final chorus. It's that build
You want
up.
to hear it? You want to hear that? Let's just look at
Yeah,
a
I
little
wanna
build
hear
up.
it.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
So hang up the phone, 'cause you're probably better alone. And tonight I walk through an empty street with my shadow stretching in front of me, where my lonely thoughts see my
There's a little craftsmanship, guys.
This song very nearly did not come to fruition because you had written that chorus for Jonathan Jones,
Yeah, I wrote it for Waking Ashland. Yeah.
Oh,
and
that's
they
right.
rejected it.
And it was rejected, yeah. And then I remember being at the little cafe at Whole Foods in Los Gatos, California, staying with my parents and writing the verse to that. I have a very a visual memory of when that verse melody and basic lyric structure came. That was a good feeling because I was like, oh, this is going to work. Oh, is there anything else you guys want to say about Town You Live In?
It's one of our more popular songs. I remember, yeah, it's got a different vibe from a lot of other songs we do, like with the more mid-tempo pace and the stripped down, a little more sexy feeling verses.
I think the chorus
But
works
also-
pretty well.
I mean, it also just feels like one of the more straightforward indie rock songs on that album.
Mm-hmm. I do think the bridge, though, is a good example of that Beach Boys stuff. That was kind of full on. Like, we had you hitting was it your kick drum?
We used the
or
kick drum like a timpani.
hitting it like a timpani with mallets and stuff, and definitely going for it. Yeah, it's fun. I'm glad that Jonathan didn't take it. The song it was for is a song called "Same Problem" from Composure. So if people if you wonder how it would have worked, it would have been even slower. It might not have actually worked tempo wise with that song. That song's slower. Okay. This one's "Traveling Alone." This was on both of your guys' lists, I believe. No, just Joe's, but it was your number one song, Joe. It's your number one Sherwood song.
I think
So do you want to set it up at all?
I just think the guitar work is really nice. And it's just really tight and really well done. Like, every part is great. Don't get tired of any of it. And I think it showcases very well what we were strong at.
I'm actually going to play like the last chorus and outro because I think that's a good example of what you're talking about. Although maybe people want to hear that opening riff. That's kind of
Yeah.
what you. So I'll play a little at the beginning and then I'll play a little bit at the end.
There's nothing I can say, nothing I can say. The words would never leave me. And nothing I can do, nothing I can do. I'm staring at the ceiling. Just see another light, see another light. Come at me from somewhere. And I won't look away, I won't look away. I will try to go there. All the ways that I have tried to understand have taken me further from the place that I had planned. And maybe the reason I've strayed so far from home is I have insisted upon traveling alone. The silver and the gold.
Is that vibraphone at the end of that chorus there? I think it was.
Or maybe Rhodes. Not
Well,
sure.
I know it was Rhodes live. Do you remember, Mike,
Oh.
on the record?
Yes, there was a vibraphone in the studio. I don't
I know-
remember if we recorded it on this song, but
Really, that
but I
real
think we tried to
wavy,
use it
rolly
as much
thing?
as possible because it was
Yeah.
really cool.
It was really cool. It was like it had like a sustain pedal,
pedal
and
on it,
stuff.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
so cool. Probably one of the coolest instruments I've ever worked with at all. Well, so yeah, I like the riff a lot. I think the thing I don't like about Traveling Alone is I think it needs like 10% more edge somewhere.
I can
It
see
needs
that.
a chord or like an unexpected harmony or something.
Some tension.
A little bit of tension. It's just a little too sweet.
Yeah.
I can
I
see
see
that.
that.
There's no conflict in it.
it is
There's
a
no
lot of fun to-
There's no sex in it, you know?
That's true. It is really fun
It's
to play
holding
live, though.
hands. It is fun to play live. And I want to play at the very end because this is an example of some of what was most fun about playing our music. See, that's the shit I'm talking about. That's fun.
It's fun.
It was really fun to
fun.
play live.
Yeah.
I think there were
It was fun to play live.
the arrangements definitely. I think it's like, were we tight because we arranged things that required it, or like I
inverse.
just feel like there was
Or
so much
did we
perform-
arrange things that required it because we were tight?
Exactly. Thank you. It was just so fun. It would just like, there were these little moments, where people were like, it showcased the tightness, I guess is my point.
I think that the day that I met Jaffrey, which is the day that you threw a tambourine from the stage and hit the same girl in the same leg twice.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
think one of the throws was during Traveling Alone, wasn't it?
Yeah, let's go with that.
I didn't log that one in my journal, but I remember
Okay.
hitting her twice.
Yeah. Insane. And it's the day I met. The universe had something in store that day.
She should have moved. She underestimated my accuracy.
Okay, so now we are moving past Sing We Keep Going. And after this first full length, we were free agents and we didn't have a label yet. And so we did, like, this was pretty much Nate, the kind of business guy for most of our career. He was like, and also a guy who is always looking for a fucking angle and usually finds one. He was like, figured out that absolutepunk.com or net or whatever,
Net, I think.
which was like the big like forum at that time. This is before social media's ubiquity, of course. This is the main forum for people to talk about like Warped Tour kind of bands. And we knew Scott, I think it was Scott who ran that. I don't know, or worked there. Scott Weber worked there. Anyway, We knew
Tate.
them a little bit.
Tate.
We didn't.
Jason.
Yeah, we knew Scott Weber.
Jason Tate.
Jason Tate ran it. We knew Scott Weber, who worked with him, and basically we did it as a free EP, a free digital download of 5 of the 7 songs, and then we had a 7-song version that we sold, on our in CD form and maybe on iTunes or whatever. So I actually took the version of "I'm Asking Her to Stay" from the summer EP, which I prefer because, well, I guess I have to talk about "A Different Light," which is the next record, to say this, but I got real ambitious and very smile focused, as you mentioned, on "A Different Light," trying to do this kind of like multiple themes, like showing up at different points in the album, really like an extension of what you were talking about earlier, Joe, with there's a couple themes in a song that get repeated. We were trying to do it. I was trying to do it across the whole album, which was pretentious and stupid and didn't add that much value to the final composition. And on the summer EP, we didn't. It's like 2 minutes and 35 seconds long. It's just like a short and sweet indie pop song. It's got my favorite lyric, I think, that I ever wrote, which is, "Through the tangled thread, the needle finds a way, and I'm asking her to stay." I saw one person get that tattooed on them. The only lyrics of mine I ever saw tattooed on a person. I feel like I'm talking a lot about myself today.
It's okay.
It's very weird.
You have permission.
Thank you. So here's "I'm Asking Her to Stay" from the summer E EP.
I've been spending all my time composing letters to a girl who lives 1,000 miles away. But writing never takes the place of living. And I need her arms, I need her smile again. She called me up to let me go today. For a moment thought it easier than being away. But through the tangled thread the needle finds a way. And I'm asking her to stay.
That's the first thing we've played tonight that my reaction to hearing it was, "Oh, I'd listen to that band." I haven't felt that yet. And we know all
I kind of felt that too a little bit. Yeah.
I just felt that now for the
bass,
first time.
Very like Death Cab.
That's
Yeah,
kind of a Death Cabby riff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys have any memories about making the summer EP? Again, with Michael Rosas, mostly done at his house.
Yeah. We did our first 3 releases with him, and he was just a good guy that he was a good
Great
engineer.
Yeah.
Engineer.
Understood our band. Obviously he wasn't super expensive. I think I'm sure he didn't get paid much by whatever we would consider today's standards to be.
Yeah.
But he was affordable, but had some real chops. And we also he knew all the Beach Boys stuff. Do you remember this, Joe? He had himself re-recorded the entirety of Pet Sounds, like as a personal project.
That's right.
And then burned that as a Christmas gift for his friends one year. So he really knew the Beach Boys stuff, which I was like gaga about. But certainly those recordings with him, like after we stopped working with him, we beefed things up. We definitely kind of, we'll talk about that when we get to Different Light, but yeah.
Yeah. He's a very like meat and potatoes basics. Like your guys are a 5-piece band like this. And maybe this was our approach too. Like we wanted it to sound like 5 people in a room playing together.
Yeah. I think we did have kind of a naturalistic approach to those records. I feel like let's play something from his band Satisfaction.
Yeah, they were really good.
Let's play a little bit of Nothing Oh Nothing, but he produced these songs as well. And he mixed them, sang them, wrote them, had a great band, pretty naturalistic, pretty much sounds like 4 guys in a room playing a song, and they didn't do a lot of overdubs. So, anyway, this is Nothing Oh Nothing by Satisfaction.
Yeah.
And when I met Jaffrey, she was already a Satisfaction fan, and I thought that was really cool.
Oh, wow.
It showed that she was plugged into the local music scene. You see? That's what I learned.
The other thing about the summer EP was most of those songs ended up getting re-recorded for the next album, right?
Yeah, 4 of them. Yeah. So
which version of this one did you like better?
Well, this is probably the only song that I like the summer EP version more. I do like Lou's production of I'm Asking Her to Stay on a Different Light, but I guess as we sort of transition into talking about that record, that ambition, just like I tacked on all these musical motifs to the end of I'm Asking Her to Stay, like 2+ minutes more of this, like, hey, remember all these melodies from the album? I'm going to put them all together here in like a suite. It was very much me doing a real shitty version of Smile. And I regret it. But I think that there's like a whole, it's just that outro. The bridge and outro. I regret it now. It's important to acknowledge one's mistakes.
I don't think it's that bad, Daniel.
I'm not fishing. I'm just being honest.
Okay.
I have made my peace with it.
Anyway, let's give the people what they want here.
A Different Light songs. Yeah.
Should we give a little background on like signing to MySpace? I think that's a pretty interesting story.
I think you should tell the story, Joe.
So let's see. We were unsigned. We did Warp Tour.
Oh, the EP also downloaded about 40,000 digital downloads, which was a huge boost for us at the time, and like a lot of press in that world, which I'm pretty sure is how Tom from... Oh, sorry. I don't want to step on your storytelling.
Well, so the way we organized it, I almost said rigged. When we offered the EP for download, it was like for free through the website, but you had to give your email address to download it.
Yeah.
So now we had like 40,000 email addresses.
Yeah.
And of people who potentially liked our music. So that was a huge way for us to... We were always very DIY and wanting to be in control of our own career, never wanting to like rely on a label to make us huge. We wanted to have control over communicating with our fans and doing things the way we wanted.
It's funny. I think that was like something that you and Nate probably agreed upon, and I don't even remember. I barely remember thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Really?
But what's interesting is you started out, we were talking about how early on we were basically selling CDs in malls.
Yeah.
I think that hustle then turned digital, right? So
I think that's
when this EP came out, MySpace was the #1 most popular website in the world.
Yep.
And in between breaks on tour, whenever we could, we would just email. We'd send people messages like, hey, if you like, you have Jimmy Eat World on your profile, you have, et cetera, like check us out. And, like we didn't even automate it. I mean, we copy pasted, but it was like we were each sending hundreds and hundreds of messages to people.
Yeah. I got to where I could hit the MySpace limit, which was 400, in about 45 minutes on the Cal Poly library computers. Just like really fast, copy paste, open up tabs, and I would just like bring my Discman and just listen to music and do that.
Yeah, we just had a very
That was
grassroots approach to marketing ourselves, and
But I think Mikey's right that it's not so much that we were like inspired by Discord Records and Minor Threat and like
it was a necessity.
it was more like, no, I think we were just fucking hustlers. And that was the way to hustle in our time and place. Like it even 10 years later, it had already changed, maybe 15 years later, that like you didn't get a career by like financing a recording and getting a van and just hitting the road. Like that is what you did when we came of age. And so that's what we did. If we had been 12 years younger, we would have been like figuring out all the ways to maximize our SoundCloud streams. Like it was just what there was. And it might be a good time to tell the story about how we rigged Pure Volume. You could say organized, but I think rigged is a better word. We did this back when the EP came out. This is before, after mp3.com, before MySpace. We had purevolume.com, and it was like labels would release like 2 free downloads from a band's upcoming album, like an Epitaph album or something like that. But local bands also had a chance to kind of get on there and make some momentum. I think Seosin kind of blew up online in part at Pure Volume. And we figured out that at 9 p.m. Pacific time, the top 10 artists on purevolume.com's front page would reset at midnight Eastern.
Servers were on the East Coast.
And then it would start over again. Sometimes it took until like 9:20 or so, but around then. And we were like, oh shit. So we would, all 5 of us would drive down to the Cal Poly Library at 9:15 p.m. and we would
No, not all 5 of us would drive. All 5 of us would cram into Joe's Toyota Camry,
right.
and he would drive.
Yeah, he would drive, windows down.
All of us, windows
all of
down.
us there, and we would go around and we would go to they had something like what, maybe 150 computers in there, something like that, and we would just divide and conquer. If there were 5 of us, then each person would go to 30 computers and go to our Pure Volume page and click for 5 seconds. We figured out it didn't take very long, for 5 seconds on all 7 songs of the EP, which we put up. And then we would hit number 1. By the time we had left the library, we'd be number 1 on Pure Volume.
At like
and
10
we would
p.m.
slowly go down throughout the day until it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it didn't work anymore. But we probably sold 500 CDs by doing that. We probably got some of the first very early connections that allowed us to do that first tour through doing that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
James Cho saw that, and that was one of the things that he was aware of that we had was some Pure Volume success, which we entirely manufactured on our own. But we did make actual fans. It stuck with some people.
I mean, arguably that was a better way than us fake emailing labels with fake email addresses saying, have you heard of this band?
Punknews2003 at hotmail.com. No, Punk Updates. Punk Updates 2003 at hotmail.com.
No, it was Yahoo.
Yeah, Yahoo.com.
It was yahoo.com. Oh my gosh. Nate at one point made pretended to be a fake music reviewer and would email labels like, hey, you got to check out this band Sherwood from San Luis Obispo. And one of those worked, right? Who was it that got that email and it actually worked?
I don't remember.
Drive-thru.
Maybe. Oh, was it drive-through that worked? That's right. And we did a showcase, but they weren't interested in us. Okay. So
eventually
Tom from MySpace, here's the music.
Contacted us out of the blue. The way I remember it, he was looking for another band, Shiny Toy Guns, who were alphabetically right after us, and he happened to see us while looking for them, and he was like, "Oh, let's check this out."
At a CD store?
Or maybe on MySpace. Yeah, unclear.
Yeah, I don't remember.
What kind of list or thing this was. But he liked it, and he wrote us a message, a MySpace message he sent to us.
Okay, this is my memory of that. He did send us a MySpace message. we had played we had just finished playing a show in Pasadena or something, right? And this was pre-smartphone, right? Like I think so after the show, we would drive through a neighborhood and try to find a non-password protected Wi-Fi signal. We would just slow roll through neighborhoods.
Yeah, and then if we found one, we would just park for a while. Everybody does all their internet stuff.
Everybody would do what they need on the internet. So we're driving through like a bougie neighborhood in Pasadena after the show. It's probably, I don't know, 12:30, 1 a.m. Joe, I have a distinct memory of you driving, and Nate is like, holding his laptop around, and then like we finally, and then we all like yell, we're like, stop, and you like slam your foot on the brake, and then it was like Nate's like, oh my gosh, like what is this real? And then he, that was the message, and Tom had just sent him a direct message, I think, or sent us, the Sherwood account.
I think the message was, it says on your profile that you guys are unsigned. Is that true?
That's right. Yep. That was the message.
And like we were like, is this for real? Like we clicked on the little link to the profile.
It was really him.
Like, that's really him.
Yeah.
And so we started talking to him then.
So then we there was a slight bidding war, is probably a little too generous, but there was some competition between MySpace Records, which they had recently launched, and I think they had only released like Hollywood Undead and maybe Mickey Avalon at that point or something like that.
Something like that.
Maybe only one of those was actually an album. The other one might have been an EP. So they're nascent label. It was an attempt to kind of have a legitimate impact in the music industry. Really, I mean, kind of ahead of its time. It didn't totally work. We did sell a decent amount of records of this record, this first one that we did with them. But, it didn't really, their dreams were not fully realized for the label, Tom's dreams. And I think it kind of was his baby. But he signed us. We didn't sign to Tooth and Nail. We signed to MySpace. And it was, certainly like the biggest thing that happened to our career. And we did 2 albums with them. The second one, which we'll get to next, Q, was kind of as MySpace was on the wane. But A Different Light was when MySpace was literally the one place you went for almost any streaming music online. Imagine if anybody who wanted to use Spotify, that meant they go to myspace.com. And so it was like being on the front page of Spotify when the album came out and when Tom had us on his profile, the song playing and all that stuff. So it was huge, and we had a pretty good budget for the first time. I think we had $75,000 or something like that total to make the record, which included, I think Lou Giordano made $40K, and then we had, or maybe it was his fee, and then we had the studio time, something like that. It might have been 80, it might have been 60, something like that. And we made it in San Francisco at Motor City Studios, which is the NoFX owned studio. I think it's still there. And we slept there in bunks.
They let us use it for free. All we had to do was pay for the engineer.
I don't know. No, I think it was a reduced rate.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was a reduced rate. But he gave us a deal, maybe 30 or 40% off or something like that. I'd become friends with Fat Mike on Warped Tour, and which I talked about a little bit on the Rancid versus NoFX episode, if people want to go deeper there. So we've got 5 songs here from A Different Light. This was certainly Sherwood's most popular record. It is, in my opinion, the best songwriting that I did for the band. And it has its flaws too, I think, but we got a bunch to hear from it now. So first we're going to hear the only song. This clocked in at number 19 out of 20. Looks like it was on each of your guys's. I'm sorry, it was just on your list, Mike. Anything to say to set up the only song?
I think we talked quite a bit about the summer EP, so I was gonna maybe talk about that song in the context of that. I think it's just a fun indie rock song. It's super energetic, catchy verse, hooky chorus.
I feel like this one holds up pretty well.
Yeah.
And really, yes, songwriting wise, the songs on this record to me are some of the strongest. So here's the only song.
Hey, let's write the story again, where I'm your
boring guitar solo. We can cut it there.
This is one of those songs that I just remember this period of your writing, 2006. Songs would just emerge from your mind fully formed, like all the instruments, all the melodies and lyrics, like 90% done, the first demo that you made.
It did happen sometimes. I think at that point, it's deceptive. It's not that many layers. So, like, it's kind of what I said earlier. There's not enough angularity. There's not enough in Traveling Alone. It's like a little too sweet and kind of safe. And especially if I was staying in that territory, it was very easy to kind of just, okay, this would be the drums and this would be the kind of open picking part that we would do. And probably there'd be an acoustic in there. And, like it got to where I had done it enough times that, it was a little bit plug and play. But yeah, sometimes it happened real quick. And this was probably this is certainly the era where that was most the case, I think, for me.
Yeah.
And I was not romantically anguished. I was like falling in love with, I don't know if I was falling in love with Jaffrey yet. I was dating Jaffrey. And I guess I'd written a lot of these before the EP, for the EP.
Yeah.
So those weren't written then. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of these songs were actually a lot of these songs are about your breakup with your previous girlfriend.
Yeah, some of them.
If not directly, then certainly emotionally, that was what was going on in your life.
Yeah, and Anna, who I had dated. What a sweet girl she was. Okay, I have no ill feelings. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
I'll add one thing. You kind of said to talk about some of our like favorite sounding albums.
Yeah.
I think each album there was something I loved about the production. So it was kind of hard to say there was one but to me this, like, just the production for the type of record it was, just was great. Like I just love the guitars, I think, throughout. I think probably on this record maybe more so than others. And I think Joe, your drums, were these drum samples that Lou had used on any number of...
Lou was a perfectionist.
Yeah.
I
do remember that.
Big rock producer. So this is like our first time working with an established like rock producer. And he
had just done Taking Back Sunday, did the Ataris before that.
Yeah, Live, Goo Goo Dolls.
Sunny Day Real Estate.
He had quite a roster under his belt. And he had just had his system for how he would do it. So we tracked the drums. And some of the songs, like, I was so well rehearsed because we had just finished doing Warped Tour and like I'd played the songs a million times. Like I remember Middle of the Night, for example, I did one take and Lou was like, well, I guess we could do another take. Why don't we?
Incredible.
And yet, after I finished tracking all the drums over the course of 2 days or something, they then spent 13 days.
Yeah.
Lou and then an assistant engineer on a separate computer going through and quantizing every drum hit of every take. Well, not every take, the take that we were happy with. Yeah. And then adding
it took
the
an
samples.
absurd amount of time. I think they had
almost
some technical
2 weeks.
I think they had some technical issues as a part of that. But also Lou was having a hard time being happy with the drum sound, and he wasn't going to move on until he was happy with the drum sound. And I like the way your drums sound on this record. I like the way your drums sound more on the next 2 records, personally.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, these are big. Yeah, they're sampled, even though like we had a really nice studio, a really nice kit. I know how to play the drums, but that's just his sound is like that. Those samples, a lot of the same samples, they sound very similar to like that Taking Back Sunday record. The snare sound, and probably the kick too.
Yeah, it's probably true. And it's clear, it's very professional sounding. It now seems a bit slick to me. It actually seems a bit thin to me. And I actually feel like the guitars are kind of buried. It's a lot of drums and vocals, which was also really common at the time for pop music. And we really were trying to get as wide of an audience as possible on this record.
Yep.
So I think that's so like Lou did that, but very much with our blessing. Like it wasn't like he acted and made us all poppy or something. Like it was,
No,
that's what we
very
wanted.
much. Yeah, we were very much on board with it.
I do really like that chorus. I don't like that massive wah in the verse there. Background vocal thing. It feels so silly. It sounds like Queen, but in a bad way. Okay, next up, From a Different Light. What we're going to do 2 more songs here tonight, and then we are going to stop, and there will be a part 2. And in part 2, at the beginning, is when you're going to get the song that, if any of you are Sherwood fans, you might be waiting to get. It's not happening in part 1. So first we get the title track, A Different Light. This is 13th on the list because, Joe, I believe it is your number 3 overall. It is. That's pretty high. Tell us about this song.
This is just another really fun one. I don't know if we ever played this live.
Maybe not.
I don't think we did. But it's just a tight Get Up Kids-esque romp.
Okay. Sorry, there was a little bit of got a newborn in here now making some noise. Hopefully he won't make too much. We're just going to do one more song here tonight, and then we will do the rest in part 2. So we're going to hear A Different Light. You did mention the Get Up Kids. The bridge is essentially instrumentally a direct ripoff from the Get Up Kids. I love them so much. Here's A Different Light.
And there's a feeling in the morning that I can get my stomach screams a warning when my first thoughts are forming in my head. And they say, whoa, baby, I gotta go. And I hate to let you know in this way, but I can fall asleep tonight if I can make it home by the daylight. When I recall the times I was left alone, 'cause in the glimmer of your eye I begin to see myself in a different light. Whoa. A different light. A different light.
Do we owe them some royalties, or are we in the clear there? Or Motion City soundtrack for that matter. You know what, Joe? I'm glad you picked that song. You know what it makes me think of? My power pop roots, which I didn't even really have language for that until last month.
I heard that too in that second verse, the jangly guitars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the like that major 2 chord and the that stuff, like it's all very power pop revival, and I do love that stuff. That's like the louder version of Beach Boys.
I forget about that one. It was really fun to hear it again.
It's track 12, right? Or track 11 or 12 out of 13.
It's near the end of the
late.
album. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that on the EP also? I think
It was.
It was, right? Yeah. So actually 5 songs from the EP made it to A Different Light. And man, I wish we hadn't re-recorded The Simple Life, but we did. And I have to live with that now every day of my life.
It's not bad.
It's, oh my gosh, it's unlistenable to me.
Huh.
I feel like, okay, Stellan's quiet. Let's just do the 2. So we're gonna do one more here tonight from A Different Light. And this is actually my number 1 song.
Wow.
And this is
Nice.
and it came in at number 6 on the combined list. But that's only just because it was my number 1. It was not on either of your lists. And that song is For the Longest Time. And I remember writing this one in really quite quickly too. Also, I forgot to mention, I remember writing, I'm asking her to stay in the back of our van in Denver, Colorado in like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I mean, it came so fast. For the longest time, I was on a drive from Seattle down to California. It was like a long, something like that. Or maybe we were driving to Eugene or something. it was a long drive, and I was like trying to write, and then I finally had this chorus melody, and I was like, hell yeah, finally something that's good. And then figured out the rest of it. The intro has got pretty heavy Kelly Clarkson Since You Were Gone vibes, but I'm going to play from the middle. So here's For the Longest Time.
And there are things I know that I don't have the patience for. And when I go to my room, I leave an open door. 'Cause I can't stand to feel alone. And when you come around, I'm feeling more at home. Whoa, and for the longest time, I couldn't love her to save my life. Never a moment of peace in my mind. Yeah, 'cause in the longest line, the front and the back are the same sometimes. And taking a number is taking my time. Whoa, don't pass me by. Give me another chance tonight to make your heavy heart so light that you can fly. 'Cause every time I see that light behind your eyes, the whole
Yeah, it's a great song. I remember the first time you played it for us. We were sitting in the RV. I think that Lucas was there, Lucas Starr. So this would have been in early '06. And I remember you played it on an acoustic guitar, and everyone was kind of like, it was kind of like everybody kind of went quiet when you started
Yeah.
playing it. It was like a very special, like, oh, this is really cool.
Wow, I have no memory of that. That's awesome.
And originally the chorus, at the end of the chorus, it has that little extra bar there. And originally it did that on every progression of the chorus,
Yeah.
but I had the idea to cut out that measure the first time to kind of make it tighter.
That was a great idea.
Thank you. Yeah, that bridge is sort of your magnum opus.
That's
when
my
it comes
Magnum
to-
Wilson brother
Yep.
opus, even more than
Yep.
Town That You Live In. And I actually, other than I stopped it before, there's this big a cappella breakdown that I absolutely loathe. It's one of my least favorite ideas I ever had. Some people really like it. I think it's overblown. It doesn't ruin the song for me, but that bridge mostly I think really works up until that moment. And that chorus, it's just like, that's just a great pop chorus. Not great. I don't want to call my own songs great. It's a really solid pop chorus that like I am not bored listening to all these years later. And I think Nate's voice sounds incredible on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that one's got a bit more of a power pop vibe. It's not all power chords. There's like some open strings and stuff like that in the guitar tunings. And that does have that kind of power pop revival, like jangliness to it. And there's organ in there and acoustic guitar, I think, and that can be too much sometimes. But I think in this song, it all blends quite well. And a lot of that's probably the mix.
When we were in the studio recording this, it was right before David, our guitar player, was joining the band, and he lived near the studio, so he came in and was hanging out for a day, and we wanted him to feel invested in this record because he was going to tour on it, and so he actually is singing in the outro of this. And for the longest time, I couldn't love her to save my life. I remember that very specifically, yeah.
I remember him coming in. I don't remember him singing on that, but
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to get his voice on there because we knew he'd be touring that record all over the world, which we got to do with him. Oh, David, I love him so much. And the other thing I wanted to say about this song is some of the like little overdubs, some of the percussion, some of the like, you did sound effects on where people are whispering in Never Ready to Leave. Joe,
Yeah.
like left ear, right ear, like whispering
me.
and stuff.
Me whispering.
Things that we did in Mexico when we were writing the record, we flew those in and just used some of them. None of like the main tracking, but like for
But
instance,
a lot of little bells and whistles.
yeah. So some of the stuff in that bridge, like the bop 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 buzz. I remember when I was like, okay, and then here's this. There's this vocal stripe of bop buzz, and he played it like by itself. He's like, what is this? He like didn't know. And I was like, it's like the Beach Boys. He's like, I guess. And then he just put it in. And I was like, I don't think that's too weird. Like bop, bop, bops. I mean, that's, that's like 60s pop. But he was like totally thrown off. I mean, he worked mostly with rock bands, like harder kind of rock bands. Yeah. But I actually think his mix on that bridge is impeccable.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to call it there. And we will do a part 2 where we get through the remaining 10 songs, including the song that everybody is waiting to be the song. And we won't say it. We won't say it here. Please let us know what you thought of this. If you made it this far, I hope it probably wasn't a waste of your time.
Yeah, and I hope I hope you're not listening in the middle of the night. But if you are, just make it through, and maybe this time I'll be a song in your head.
Bottle it up though.
Because if you do, what might happen? That's the unknown there. Okay. All right.
This was really fun. I'm looking forward to part 2.
Me too, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.